Minecraft players are always in debate over which version of the game is best. The main two sides are the Java Edition players versus the Bedrock Edition players. Pretty much ever since the release of Bedrock Edition, this has been a heated debate within the community. People point to all sorts of reasons as to why their version is the best. Bedrock Edition has crossplay, while Java Edition has everything else. But what if the answer to which is the best version of Minecraft wasn't Java nor Bedrock, but instead some secret evil third thing? Well, Java Edition is the best one, but Legacy Console is cool too. Before the release of Bedrock Edition on most consoles, they instead got a unique version of Minecraft developed by 4J Studios. This was known as Legacy Console Edition, and many people, including myself, have a ton of nostalgia for this version of the game. It was released on Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PS4, PS Vita, PS TV, Wii U, and Nintendo Switch. Now, some of those platforms, like the Switch, did eventually replace Legacy Console Edition with Bedrock. When that happened, support for their version of Legacy Console Edition was pretty much completely terminated. They would even take Legacy Console off of the system shop, so if you didn't get it, you would never have a chance again. By December of 2019, updates for Legacy Console as a whole were shut down as the PlayStation 4 finally joined the others with Bedrock. So that means that the Legacy Console editions of the game have basically been completely abandoned. That is a bit tragic, because not only do I have a ton of nostalgia for it, but there were some pretty interesting features that were only found in this version of the game. So today, I thought it'd be fun to run through some of these and discuss why I think they exist, and if I think it would be cool to see them on Java Edition too. It was really fun going down memory lane and looking at some of the stuff that was left behind, so hopefully you all find it interesting as well. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Alright, I'm sure everyone is screaming at the screen right now to address the elephant in the room. Why am I playing on the Wii U version? I am one of the lucky people to have gotten the Switch version of Legacy Console before it was taken off the eShop. However, I have it on my Switch 2 now, and apparently that version just straight up doesn't work. I've seen a ton of videos of people's games completely breaking on Switch 2, and I'm talking about some of the worst corruption I have ever seen. So I'm not gonna risk opening that version, even if I might be able to avoid those issues. Even if I could open it though, technically the Wii U version is actually better. Since the Switch received Bedrock Edition in June 2018, they completely stopped updating Switch's Legacy Console past that point. They did not, however, stop the Wii U version until March of 2019, which means it actually has extra updates. Most notably, the Wii U Legacy Console version has Update Aquatic, while the Switch doesn't. So just this once, the Wii U can take the crown as the winner over the Nintendo Switch. Just this once. Anyway, the first exclusive feature I want to talk about is not in the Wii U version. That would be the leaderboard system. That essentially acts as Legacy Console's version of the statistics menu, but with a more competitive twist. It was available on all Legacy platforms except the Nintendo ones, which is a shame, but I did get to enjoy looking at it on my old PS3. Now, this feature was far from as in-depth as the statistics menu in Java, as it would only provide stats for very specific things. The main leaderboards were for traveling, killing, mining, farming, and the glide minigame. These could be further separated by game difficulty, and you could view the worldwide stats or your friend's stats. The online aspect of this is what makes it really interesting, as in other versions you need to manually set up scoreboards per world in order to compare statistics. The Legacy Console versions had that built right in though, and I think that's pretty cool. The part that isn't as great though would have to be what the scoreboards are actually tracking. The statistics in Java pretty much track every possible thing, but take one look at the mining leaderboard on Legacy Console and you'll see that it only tracks 7 different blocks. This is the same story for every leaderboard on here, and some of the stuff they choose to track is kind of odd. For example, why is clay being tracked over something like wood or ores? Or ores. The kill screen is especially bizarre because instead of tracking major mobs like Enderman, they just throw on the spider jockey. Clearly, these are Minecraft's 7 most iconic mobs. So do I need leaderboards in Java? No, not really, but I think they were a really good idea, and if they expanded it to Java's level of tracking literally everything, I think that could be pretty neat. One thing I briefly breezed over while talking about the leaderboards though was the glide leaderboard. Only 1% of viewers noticed. This wasn't referring to just using the Elytra. Instead, it tracks time trials for the glide minigame. That's right, the Legacy Console Edition came with official built-in minigames. There were 3 different types: Battle, Tumble, and Glide. If you've played Smash Ultimate, you might recognize that a lot of the songs added to that game with Steve actually came from the Legacy Console minigames. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on these here because I honestly think each one of them deserve videos of their own, but it'd be a huge miss on my part to not at least mention them. Battle is essentially an official version of Minecraft Hunger Games, and in my opinion, it's the best rendition of this minigame type that I have ever played. I used to be obsessed with playing this on my PlayStation 3. My friends and I would have a ton of sessions fighting against each other or just going online. On lower end consoles like the PS3, up to 8 people could be in a game at once, but the PS4 and Xbox One did support up to 16 players. There were a ton of different maps where players would have to look for gear all while trying to kill all the other players. If any mode is getting its own exclusive video, it'll definitely be Battle, but the other 2 are pretty great too. Tumble acted as a spleef game where players would have to try and destroy the blocks underneath their opponents to win. There were 2 different Tumble modes: Shovel, which would have only 1 layer, and Snowballs, which would have 3. From what I remember, I enjoyed both of those modes pretty equally, though Tumble as a whole was definitely a side game compared to Battle. The final mode they added was Glide, which pretty much just acted like an Elytra race course. There were 2 modes here too, being a standard race to the finish, or a points-based mode where you had to go through rings. I probably liked this one about as much as Tumble, though Glide did have the big perk of having a single player mode, which the others didn't. Overall, I think these games were a ton of fun. You really just had to be there to appreciate how great they really were. I especially loved that they had so many options for how you wanted to play. You could play locally, with friends online, or just online with randos. Many major Minecraft servers force people to play with random people no matter what, so this was a huge advantage of having these official minigames. If there were any feature I could bring to Java right now from this video, it would easily be these minigames. I rarely play minigames at all these days, and I think a part of that is because I haven't really found any that were as good as these 3. But yeah, I'll definitely do a video on Battle Mode in the future where I go a bit more into detail. For now though, I'll leave it there so we can move on to our next exclusive feature. Okay, so far we've been focused on a lot of stuff outside the main survival mode, so let's look at a few features from there. One of the most distinct parts of Legacy Console Edition is unfortunately a pretty big weakness. Instead of having practically infinite worlds like on Java or Bedrock, the world size was very limited. Lower end consoles could only have a max world size of 864 by 864 blocks. Better consoles were able to bring that up to a much higher 5,120 blocks squared, but these are obviously much smaller than the worlds we can get on other editions. Oh yeah, the Switch was weird and got an exclusive max size of 3,072 blocks. Mario always has to be different. Now that's not the exclusive feature I want to talk about, because obviously you can always just control the world border on Java to be as small as you want. I bring this up though because this limited world size affected how the developers had to implement a lot of features. For example, structures were made to spawn much more frequently on Legacy Console because a limited world size means a higher chance of a structure just not existing at all. 1% of a sponge enjoyer's pain when an ocean monument doesn't exist. Woodland mansions and ocean monuments in particular were given much higher spawn rates than their Java counterparts. On top of that, nether wart was also reworked in this version. On Legacy Console, it could spawn on any piece of soul sand in the nether rather than just in the fortress. That makes nether wart so much easier to come by, and I would honestly not complain about that being brought over to Java too, especially after the nether update made finding fortresses much more difficult. Nether wart wasn't the only fortress related tweak though, as blazes have a pretty interesting change too. On top of dropping blaze rods like normal, they also have a chance to drop up to 2 pieces of glowstone dust. That was likely done to combat the fact that glowstone was much more limited in the small world sizes. On all versions of the game, the nether is much smaller than the overworld. Most consoles' nether size was only 288 blocks squared, with the stronger consoles only being slightly better with a 640 block size. So I do think it was pretty important to make glowstone renewable through blaze drops. Now technically, glowstone is still renewable regardless through witch drops and villager trades, but neither of those existed when this feature was first added. Even though it does make farming glowstone easier, I don't really need it to come to Java, as I think it's fine as is with the near infinite world size. This was definitely a good tweak for consoles though. Sticking with the nether, one of its most important uses in modern Minecraft is its travel capabilities. That's because every block in the nether equates to 8 blocks in the overworld, so you could travel distances much faster by going through the nether and building a portal. While this is still the case on Legacy Console, the block ratio is actually different depending on world size. Large worlds will have the normal 1 to 8 block ratio, but medium-sized worlds will have 1 to 6 block ratio, and smaller worlds are even more pathetic with a 1 to 3 block ratio. At that point, you're barely saving any time traveling when you consider the portal animation and the fact that you are, at most, traveling 864 blocks. I'm obviously quite happy to keep the Java 1 to 8 block ratio, but it is interesting to see how the console developers got around this limitation. While we're on the topic of travel though, I do want to talk about one of the most surprising differences. A big talking point in the Minecraft community in recent years has been the debate about how it handles travel. Many say that the elytra is too overpowered, which I heavily disagree with because flying is really fun. When people have suggested balancing changes, one of the most common has been to make minecarts faster. Mojang has been at least somewhat receptive to this with the minecart experimental features, but those still haven't been fully added. But luckily, if you hear anyone make this suggestion again, all you have to do is throw a PlayStation at them. That's because on Legacy Console, minecarts actually move at double the speed that they do on Java and Bedrock. Now, instead of just moving at 8 blocks per second, they move at a much quicker 16 blocks per second. That's faster than even the quickest possible horse you can breed, making minecarts a way better method of transport on console. With that being said, I really have no clue why this difference even exists. The limited world sizes make fast transport much less important, so the fact that Legacy Console has the fastest minecarts is kinda funny. I mean, you can cross the entire max world size in some versions in only 54 seconds with this. So yeah, the Legacy minecarts are way better than our minecarts on Java. With that being said, if this change were to come to Java, I'd hope it'd be with a new rail type. While the current speed isn't as good for transport, it works really well with redstone contraptions, especially anything with hoppers. So if we could get a copper rail that gives us the 16 block speed from the console versions, that would be amazing. Alright, transport aside, let's finish up with the nether changes as there were still a couple more. The smaller one would be the fact that wither skeletons can actually spawn outside of the fortress on Legacy editions. I'm not entirely sure why this was done, but if I were to guess, it was probably just to make the nether a bit more difficult. I'm assuming it's not because of nether fortresses being limited since they didn't do this for blazes, but who really knows. I honestly think this would be kind of a cool addition to Java to spruce up Soul Sand Valleys, though their spawn rate should definitely be higher in the actual fortress. But speaking of, what if you have a world so old that you didn't generate a nether fortress at all? Or what if the stupid dumb friend that you hate stole all of the shulker shells and elytras in the end? Well, don't worry, as Legacy Console has a feature to help with this. When loading into a world, the player is given the option to reset both the nether and end dimensions. That makes it so you can basically keep your overworld perfectly intact while refreshing those old dimensions to get new stuff. I think that's a pretty helpful feature, especially because of the limited world sizes. The end one would be especially helpful for bigger servers to refresh end cities after people took all the loot. Now, technically this isn't an exclusive feature since you can just delete the nether or end related files in a Java Minecraft save folder, but having this actually be in the game itself is much nicer for players like me that don't know what we're doing when it comes to messing with files. For our final nether exclusive feature in Legacy versions, we have to take a look at super flat worlds. If you go into the nether on a Java super flat world, it's just completely normal. However, if you go into the nether on a Legacy super flat world, the nether will be flat there too. This is just kind of a nice addition to fit with the whole super flat theme. I don't really have a strong preference over which is better, but it does feel pretty fun to just run around a mostly empty nether dimension. Also, as a little bonus fact, the super flat settings in Legacy Console versions are expanded way more than they are in Java. You can still do most of the same stuff there, but it's so much easier on Legacy versions. And plus, you can even set the main dimension to be in the nether biome, which lets you place down water and have it look blood red. It's pretty cool though, so I'd be on board with them improving super flat settings on Java. But with all the nether related things finally out of the way, I want to look back at another feature that's outside the normal survival mode. In modern Minecraft, it's clear that Mojang has been attempting to make the game more understandable for new players. The most obvious addition is the recipe book, which is great for listing out all of the game's hundreds of crafting recipes. Before that, if you didn't know how to make something, you had to either look it up or hope you got lucky. I don't think they got lucky. Legacy Console took this tutorial element a lot further though, as they actually had a full-on tutorial world. These were pre-built worlds that would actually explain how to play the game along with several core mechanics. I'm sure these worlds helped so many people get familiar with Minecraft, even if I never really felt the need to play one myself. What's also nice is that there wasn't just one single tutorial world, as it would actually update along with the game. Not every update would get its own world, but there were a decent amount created. What's even cooler is that these worlds weren't just tutorials, as there was a lot to explore around in each of them. They would even scatter chests around the map containing each of the 12 music discs, so it sort of acted like a bit of a scavenger hunt too. I think these were really charming, and probably pretty helpful for a lot of players, so I wouldn't mind seeing tutorial worlds make a comeback. I doubt I would ever really go into them, but they're nothing but a good thing. Sticking with the tutorial aspect of the game, one other really neat feature that the Legacy Edition had were item descriptions. If you encounter something for the first time, or click the "What's this?" option in the inventory, the game will actually give you a bit of information about it. These range in usefulness from being almost entirely useless, like "thanks, I had no idea a cobblestone wall was a wall made of cobblestone," to actually being pretty useful tips. The description for the music discs, for example, explain how you can get them from a skeleton shooting a creeper, which is a mechanic that I don't think is explained at all in Java unless you stumble upon it. Food will also say exactly how many hunger points they give the player, which makes remembering them a whole lot less tedious. Unless you want to eat sweet berries, they forgot that one. I think this would be another nice feature to add to Java someday. I'm sure it would take a lot of time writing descriptions for every item, but I think it would be worth it, especially to learn what's new from an update. Speaking of food actually, I do have one more food related feature. This is more of a cut Java feature rather than an exclusive, as the Legacy Console Edition still lets you craft enchanted golden apples using an apple and 8 gold blocks. This did used to be the case in Java 2 until they removed the recipe in 1.9. Notably, that is well before support on Legacy Console stopped, so it was a conscious decision to keep the recipe in this version. My guess is that it has to do with the world size again. Since enchanted golden apples can only be found in structures on Java, removing the crafting recipe would make them way harder to find on Legacy consoles. Most worlds probably wouldn't spawn with a single one.
Do you really want to live in a world without
enchanted golden apples? I mean, I really couldn't care less. One of the items that has the most changes on the Legacy Console version of the game would have to be the map. It plays a much more important role in the game, which is seen right away as players will always spawn with one. I think that sort of goes along with the whole limited world size thing, especially since the maps are always zoomed out. I personally don't really love that since I think the smallest map size is my favorite, but it is kind of neat to have what's basically a world map. To go with that, maps are also used in this version to display your coordinates. Obviously, there's not an F3 button on the Wii U gamepad. No, wait, there it is. Honestly, I think if the F3 menu never existed, this is probably how Mojang would have wanted to add chords in the first place. That's not the only thing added to maps though, as there are several other things that can appear on them that don't exist on other versions. First off, I have always hated that when you put a map in an item frame on Java Edition, it gets this really ugly green marker. It never looks good, and I wish they would just add a way to remove it. A way that's not trapped on Bedrock Edition preferably. While Legacy Console does still have a marker when it's placed in an item frame, it does at least look a lot better as it's instead replaced by an item frame symbol. I don't know why they haven't just ported this over to Java because it looks so much better than a recolor of the player's marker. The other exclusive map mechanic on console is an X that would appear on the map when a player enters the end. This would appear at the stronghold, and while it is kind of neat, I don't think I'm nearly as sad about this one not being in Java. I can't think of a single time where this feature would have come in handy for me, but I still thought it was interesting enough to mention. Now before I get to what's probably my favorite exclusive feature, besides battle mode, I want to do a rapid fire round. These are all much smaller things, but I figured they'd still be fun to bring up. For some reason, sand and red sand can be smelted using blast furnaces on the PS4 version. I don't know if that's more or less accurate, but that would be helpful in smelting large quantities of glass a lot quicker. Wandering traders have a couple new trades, allowing them to give the player all of the double tall flowers and red sandstone. While that last trade isn't too helpful since he already has a normal red sand trade, the double tall flowers would be nice in game modes like Skyblock or Superflat since it's otherwise impossible to obtain them. In the creative mode menu, you can find both potions of decay and potions of luck. Decay potions can also be found in the Bedrock creative menu, but the luck potion is seemingly exclusive to console, despite the luck effect existing on Java 2. It's really funny that they decided to include the potion of luck because it basically does absolutely nothing. It slightly helps with fishing, but that's literally it. Luckily, the game does at least explain that in the item's description. Shrubs are an item I talked about in my cut features video, basically just being a dead bush that acts like short grass. It can be placed on grass blocks, is randomly misplaced, drops seeds when broken, and even hue shifts based on the biome. While this was removed from Java Edition back in 1.13, they do still exist in Legacy Console's creative menu. It's not really a block I miss, especially since it was always impossible to get in survival, but the fact that Legacy Console has it as an exclusive is kinda neat. And finally for this rapid fire round, the Phantom only has 10 health in this version instead of 20. Loser! For the final exclusive feature of this video, I want to talk about one that I always thought was super cool. One of the most popular aspects of Minecraft would have to be its music. Its soundtrack is incredibly iconic with both the ambient music and the game's record discs. I love trying to collect all the discs in every world I make, especially with new discs being added every few drops nowadays. Now Legacy Console doesn't have any entirely new music discs. Looking at the selection, it appears to be exactly the same as Java's pre 1.16. However, one of these discs discs actually has a major change. That disc would be Cat, probably the most iconic disc of the bunch. Now, it may not seem that way at first. If you play the song, it will sound exactly the same. However, when the song ends on Legacy Console, a new song will actually start soon after named Dog, and it's always been one of my favorite pieces of music in the entire game. Honestly, I probably prefer this song to the normal Cat record disc. It's just so upbeat and incredibly nostalgic. It's great that Legacy Console was able to find a way to use this track that's just been hidden on Minecraft's soundtrack for years. Even if it does require listening to a whole other song first, getting to hear it at all is better than nothing. I would love if Java could do this too, or even better, if Dog could finally get its own record disc. But for now, Dog remains as an exclusive song to the Legacy Console edition, so every time I listen to it, I can get a nostalgic reminder of this old version of the game. But anyways, that's it for this video. Are you obsessed with the plastic texture pack and hate me for not mentioning it? Let me know in the comments. I had a lot of fun going back to this old version for this video, so hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. Sorry again for the shaky upload schedule recently, but your all support has really been helping me get through this final semester of college, and I appreciate that a ton. Speaking of, before I go, I've got to thank my members being Fredbear's Diner, Smuggy, Maidzo2, Guy112, Danny Gaming Central, Zach Pro, Young Smoky VP7, Flame765, RavenX Scarf, Peanut Brown of Gallery, Gorposaurus, Extreme 5026, BFDI Macaron, The Ender Kirby, Stephen Hafner, Mikey711, Bell Slimes, Night Vision 101 PDX, Wilbur, Knight, Jenny, Triple Double, Bleep3454, Mogo Mogo Boat, Stuffy Ant, Rich Dude 29, Jahojim, Linhard von Hevring, Magnus and Larslot, Trifector, Tibby, Mario Master 101, Hippopotamus, Levi Strux, Nuclear, Cassie Channel, Blessed Tiger, Yanni the Duck, Wyatt Derpy, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Display Changer, SMA, B Major 2003, Sir Musty, Belandor, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Thicky Reiki, Enginio TM, CW McCain, Tesseract, JubeTube, Jameson Pageson, Z Frost Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.